While everyone's here, go change her locks." The whisper cut through the room like a blade. The forks stopped moving. The air thinned. We were sitting in a cafe meant to look warm brick walls, soft bulbs, rain tapping the window. The kind of place where people take birthday pictures. My mother sat across from me, her pearls bright under the yellow light. My father leaned in closer, nodding once as if this was logistics, not betrayal. My brother pushed his chair back. The metal legs scraped the tile, a sound too small to be violent. Yet everyone heard it. The waitress froze with the coffee pot mid-air. My friend from work blinked, unsure whether she had misheard. My mother smiled at her like nothing had happened. "Dessert for everyone," she said, voice bright, eyes cold. I kept my hands still on the tablecloth. The cake sat in front of me, white frosting, gold candles, melting one by one. My name curved in pink sugar. It looked like someone else's celebration. The sound of plates being stacked at the next table felt miles away. My brother left. The bell above the door chimed once, cheerful and wrong. I could see his reflection in the glass as he crossed the street, umbrella folding against the wind. The rain outside blurred everything: the lights, the people, the line between family and audience. The knife rested beside the cake. My mother looked at me expectantly. "Go ahead," she said. I did. The knife slid through sugar and sponge, slow and clean. I placed a slice on her plate. The candle smoke curled upward, thin as breath. No one spoke. The room had gone too quiet, even for a cafe. The vibration of my phone broke the silence. A small blue light blinked against the table. My name glowed on the lock screen, Ainsley, reflected in the silver of a spoon. One unread message. The subject line, "Notice of lease access update." My mother's gaze flicked toward it, then back to her plate. A single eyebrow rose. Barely. She knew exactly what it was. The waitress placed a new cup of coffee in front of me. I didn't touch it. The steam rose in slow ribbons, twisting between us. My fingers traced the edge of the saucer once, twice. Then I turned the phone face down. The screen went dark, like closing a door. My brother's empty chair was still pulled away from the table. The rain outside had thickened. It sounded heavier now, as if the city itself was listening. My father reached for the sugar packet. His hand trembled just enough for one grain to fall. I straightened the knife beside my plate. Small, clean motion. My mother pretended not to notice. Her napkin remained folded, untouched, white against her lap. Across the room, someone laughed too loudly at another table. The sound hit and faded. The space around us stayed still. I could feel the candle wax cooling, forming a pale crust on the frosting. The smell of burnt sugar hung in the air. My pulse slowed. My shoulders dropped. I inhaled once through my nose. Quiet. Steady. I didn't look at her again. I didn't ask why. I just thought, this isn't new. It's just louder this time. It started small. A few months before the cafe, my brother borrowed my card to fill the gas tank on his way to work. He said it was faster than stopping for his. He sent me a picture of the receipt, said he'd pay me back. He never did. The photo stayed on my phone, blue digits under fluorescent light. Time stamped 7:42 a.m. I didn't ask again. It wasn't the money. It was the pattern. The next week, I came home to find my spare key missing from the hook. My mother said she'd borrowed it just to check on the plants while I was away for work. The soil was dry when I returned. The windows closed. She hadn't watered anything. She had just been inside. The following Sunday, we were at my parents' house for dinner. Long table, white wine, the sound of glass against glass. I sat 2 seats down, the usual place between presence and absence. My father read numbers from a printed sheet, property figures, taxes, dividends. My brother leaned back in his chair, tapping a pen. "You know, Eric's the one keeping this all running," my father said. His voice filled the room easily. "Ainsley's too busy with her little job to understand this scale." Across the table, my mother nodded. "She's good with small things. Eric thinks big." They didn't look at me. They didn't need to. Beside me sat Mara, my father's assistant. She was there to take notes, though I knew she didn't have to. She always wore the same gray blazer, a thin gold bracelet that clicked when she moved her wrist. Her pen paused midair when she heard my name, then moved again, smooth, pretending nothing happened. She didn't meet my eyes. None of them did. The laptop screen faced them, not me. A spreadsheet glowed, cells in neat columns of green and red. I could see one tab name before my father minimized it. Assets, Family, 2020. I reached for my glass, careful not to touch the edge too hard. The sound of the bracelet still echoed in my head. I told myself it was just dinner, but the words lingered. Small things, the kind that people forget to notice until they cut deep enough to stay. 3 months later, the notice arrived in my inbox. Subject, Account Access Update, Warren Holdings. I almost deleted it. The logo looked official, but my name was missing from the CC line. My brother's was there. My mother's too. The attachment opened to a PDF. New signatures. Revised authorization. Date stamped and clean. I recognized my father's initials in the corner and a digital version of my own. Forged. It wasn't shock. It was the precision of it. The way the curve of my signature leaned slightly wrong. The way my name was used like a spare key again. I closed the file. Downloaded it to a private folder. Renamed it Ledger Final Copy. Then I sat still. The hum of the refrigerator filled the room. Outside, a car passed. Headlights sweeping across the blinds. At work. They'd stopped copying me on reports related to the family trust. It's just numbers, my father said. Eric's managing it. At home. My brother had the passwords for utilities to make payments easier. My mother had my spare key again. The plants still died. Every favor I allowed became another door unlocked. Every silence another signature they practiced. The breadcrumb sat there, one file among many, but it carried weight. When I met Mara again at a corporate luncheon, she looked different. The bracelet was gone. Her nails were short, unpainted. She greeted me quietly, eyes flicking once, then away. "You didn't hear this from me," she murmured. "But the trust documents changed last week. You're not listed anymore." The clink of silverware around us drowned her words. I just nodded, thanked her, and left before dessert. Back in my car, I sat with the engine off. My reflection floated in the dark window, pale and still. I wasn't angry. I was finished. That night, I wrote a note to myself on a small square of paper. No more permissions. I folded it once, placed it inside my wallet, behind my ID. Then I locked every door in my apartment. Twice. The apartment was dark except for the clock's thin glow. The rain had stopped hours ago, but I could still hear water in the pipes. I sat on the floor beside the table, the phone face down in front of me. The screen had gone cold, but my reflection still clung faintly to the glass. The lease notice from that night stayed unopened in my inbox, pinned at the top like a wound I refused to clean. The air conditioner hummed once, then quieted. The silence shaped itself around small sounds, the tick of the thermostat, the rustle of the curtain when the draft slipped in. I reached for the file drawer under the desk. The metal clinked when I pulled it open. Inside, a neat row of envelopes, each marked with a date. I pulled out one, then another. Receipts, emails, signatures. I laid them side by side, flat, aligning corners, building order from insult. The glow of my laptop filled the room with a pale blue. I plugged in the external drive, waited for the small light to blink. Then I began. Click. Rename. Folder. Label. Financial. Records. 2018. Warren Trust. 2020. Access. Change. Log. Every file clicked into place like teeth in a lock. I scrolled through old messages, filtering by name, by keyword. Transfer. Approval. Memo. Their digital trail was cleaner than I expected. My father's precise phrasing repeated itself through the years. My brother's one-word replies followed like echoes. I didn't search for evidence. I sorted it. It was already here. The printer warmed. A low buzz in the corner. I watched the paper slide out, one after another. The ink smell filled the room, chemical. Final. I slipped the pages into clear sleeves. One per file. No notes. No explanations. The plastic caught the light and shimmered like something too clean to touch. The last document was the forged signature, the one they used to remove me. I printed that too. My name, bent at the wrong angle. I placed it on top, perfectly aligned. The refrigerator clicked again. The lights dimmed. I stayed sitting there for a long time, surrounded by quiet order, the kind that comes before a storm moves back in. Morning light cut through the blinds, thin and straight. The pages from last night were still on the table, untouched, corners sharp. I made coffee. No sugar, no sound but the slow drip against glass. At 9, I sent one email. Subject: verification request, documentation alignment. The body was simple. Please confirm receipt of the trust documents signed on March 12. For record purposes, I sent it to all three: father, mother, Eric. Then I waited. The first reply came from my father's assistant. Received. Copy archived. Perfect. The mark of acknowledgement. A timestamp. The first step was done. By noon, I walked to a small notary office 2 blocks away. The fluorescent light buzzed overhead. The clerk didn't ask questions. She just pressed the seal down on every page. Slow and deliberate. The embossed circles caught the light, leaving raised skin on the paper. She handed them back to me in a plain manila envelope. Outside, the wind lifted a sheet before I could tuck it in. I watched it flutter once before catching it, folding it twice, sliding it between the others. That evening, I called Mara. The voice on the other end was steady. You want me to print duplicates? She asked. Yes. Keep one at your desk. File under audit requests. Got it. The sound of her printer started immediately. A faint hum through the line. Every 1, 2 of the Tamil. Step 2 complete. For the last move, I opened the family group chat. My hands didn't shake. I typed slowly. Dinner. This Friday, my place, 7 p.m. I'll handle everything. No emojis. No explanation. 3 dots appeared. Then my mother's reply. Fine. We'll be there. My father sent a thumbs up. Eric didn't respond. I looked at the screen for a while, then turned it face down. Same as before. The reflection of my ceiling light faded across the glass. On the table, the sealed folder waited. My name embossed. Correct this time. I whispered into the empty room, steady and low. I don't need them to believe me. I just need the record to speak. The cafe was the same one from my birthday. Different table, same light. Friday, 7, sharp. The staff dimmed the overhead bulbs. The rain pressed lightly on the windows. My table faced the street, a soft reflection of headlights sliding across the glass. The smell of coffee and polished wood mixed in the air. I'd chosen it on purpose, public but quiet. A place where truth would have witnesses, not an audience. My mother arrived first, coat draped neatly on her arm. My father followed, already speaking into his phone. Eric came last. No eye contact, no apology. At the next table, Mara sat alone with her laptop open, pretending to work. She didn't look at me, but the faint blue light of her screen blinked like a metronome. We ordered. None of us touched the menus. The waitress poured water into glasses, the ice clinking softly. The sound filled every silence. My father started first. We know you've been confused about the documents, he said, tone low and reasonable. Families handle wealth differently. Sacrifices are made. My mother picked up his thread seamlessly. Everything we did was for structure. You've had the freedom to live how you like because of us. Eric nodded, tapping his finger against the table. You wouldn't have your apartment without the trust. Ainsley, don't act like you built this alone. They spoke easily, like a rehearsed chorus. Words about loyalty, family, duty. Each one polished to sound like care. Mara typed softly at her table. The faint rhythm of keys underlined their sentences. I didn't interrupt. I let them build their story, brick by brick, the way they always had. My mother's bracelets clicked when she gestured. My father's cufflinks caught the light. When their words finally slowed, a small silence slipped in, the kind that makes you hear your own breathing. The waitress refilled a glass. The water poured in a smooth, Unbroken stream. I looked at the condensation sliding down my glass, then at my reflection inside it faint, centered, still. No one spoke. The air felt charged, but calm. The hum of the espresso machine rose once, then faded. It was time. My hands rested flat on the tablecloth. Steady. My bag sat beside my chair, half zipped. The envelope inside weighted thick. Legal paper under thin plastic. I waited one more beat, just long enough for the silence to deepen. Then, I reached down. The zipper moved without sound. The envelope slid out, pale under the cafe light. I placed it between the water glasses. No one spoke. The envelope stayed there for a full 10 seconds before I opened it. The first page was a screenshot emails, dates, subject lines, each one from my father's office address, authorization change, transfer confirmation, his signature, my forged one beneath it. The table caught the faint rustle of paper as I turned the page. Next, a printed chat log. My brother's messages to the bank liaison used the same credentials. She won't check. The ink was still sharp, like it had just been written. I didn't speak. I let the sound of each page turning do the work. Mara stood now, quietly, without breaking the rhythm. She stepped forward. She placed a single sheet next to mine, a stamped notary certificate. The gold seal pressed deep into the corner. My mother's breath caught. My father's jaw tightened, the muscle flickering once, then holding. I lifted the second stack. Bank transfers. Numbers, accounts, dates. 75美元. Lin Lin Lin. 112美元. Ling Ling Ling. Memo. Maintenance. The word sat there like a bruise. My father reached for the papers, but I moved them an inch closer to me. The motion was small, final. Layer 3. The notarized trust revision. My real signature below the new heading. Reinstatement of beneficiary. Independent custody. My name. Correctly spelled, witnessed, sealed. Mara nodded once. Filed and confirmed, she said quietly. Her voice was the first besides mine in weeks. The silence after her words was dense. No one could find a sound to fill it. My mother's glass tipped slightly when she set it down. Eric's fingers trembled against his napkin. I looked at them not long, just enough. From now on, I said evenly, what's mine stays with me. You don't speak for it. You don't hold it. You don't move it. I folded the papers once, slid them back into the envelope, sealed it shut. My father's voice cracked the quiet. You think you can just walk away from this family? I pushed the envelope toward Mara. Already did, I said. The filings went through yesterday. The waitress arrived then, unaware, setting down a new pot of coffee. The smell spread through the air. My mother's chair shifted back, the legs scraping tile. My father said nothing else. Eric stared at the table, mouth tight, eyes on the condensation ring left by his glass. I stood, took my coat. Before leaving, I said one final line flat, measured. Everything's where it should be now. Then I walked out. The bell above the door chimed once, the same sound as before, but this time it followed me into clean air. Morning light reached across the counter, pale and even. The house was still. Only the slow hiss of the kettle filled the air. I moved quietly through the kitchen. Sleeves rolled, hair still damp. The chair from last night sat pushed in. The table clear, except for one mug. The envelope was gone. The clock above the stove ticked once every second, steady and clean. I rinsed a cup, placed it upside down on the rack. The sound of ceramic against metal rang sharp, then faded. No messages waited on my phone. No names flashing. No missed calls. I turned the screen off and slid it into a drawer. There were small differences now silent. Precise. I didn't leave the hall light on anymore. I locked the door once, not twice. I walked without looking over my shoulder. The air felt different in the apartment. Thinner but easier to breathe. I opened a window. The curtain lifted slightly, catching the edge of sunlight. Across the street, as the livery truck passed, the rumble rolled through the floorboards, then drifted away. On the counter, a single key lay beside a folded napkin, the same key they once used to enter without asking. I didn't move it. I just watched it under the morning light until the metal warmed. The kettle clicked off. Steam rose in slow ribbons. I poured the water, the sound quiet and whole. In the group chat, no one mentioned that night, but messages arrived faster, now short, and neutral replies, like people keeping the door slightly open. At work, Mara passed me in the hallway. She didn't stop, only nodded once, a quiet acknowledgement that everything had shifted. I spent the afternoon cleaning, papers into folders, shelves back in order. The key on the counter stayed where it was. When I wiped around it, I lifted it carefully, set it back in the exact same spot. Later, I watered the plants. The soil took the water slowly, darkening one patch at a time. Outside, the light softened to gold. I opened the window wider. The air moved through the room, cool and clean, fluttering the pages of a magazine on the table. For a moment, the sound almost matched breathing. Maybe that was enough. Maybe quiet could rebuild things the way noise never did. I stood there until the steam from my mug faded to nothing. Then I said it. Not to anyone, just to the space that used to hold their voices. I kept my silence, and my silence kept me.